You see there's a lot of people on stage, and we also have Ruokun tuning in from China. The topic that I would like to discuss, and I think I described this first as a really open question that I have. So I don't have a tendency, I just have personal feelings. Let's say when I started out learning TouchDesigner, which was fairly early, the most striking thing was, of course, there were very little resources, but all of these resources were shared freely, right? So there was Matthew Rydén putting out YouTube tutorials and so on. People were sharing their tools. And it was because it was a niche. There was nothing. People were really depending on sharing with each other. And now we see a certain hype. There's a lot of new users coming to TouchDesigner at the same time. Of course, Patreon happened, so there's now a possibility for creators to have their individual community supporting them. I see a lot of positive effect. I know, Bileam, that you had a very positive experience during post-COVID, having a community that supported you. We see that it enables Josef to build these crazy tools, right? He can take the time, getting paid, delivering. A lot of positive outcomes. On the negative side, I see that almost anything moves behind a paywall now. And maybe even worse than that, this paywall is incredibly fragmented. Because it's not one marketplace, it is like a million marketplaces. And there's also, what I also see is a lot of people now have realized that teaching TouchDesigner can be a lucrative thing, can be a career, a job. Building tools can be a career, a job. I mean, we're completely in that, right? We also created these courses to enable the instructors to make a living from us, to making ourselves. The first thought was, I need to earn some money, it's pandemic, I can teach, so I built a platform where I can survive these years. But now I feel it moves a bit in a direction that it's kind of a chaos. Our best-selling argument now is almost, yeah, there's all this confusion out there. Come to us, we try to sort it for you and say what's important, what not, deliver a structured course. That's why people come to us, right? Because they're confused about all this. So what I want to discuss with you is, of course, maybe from your own perspective, the positive effects it has in your own life, but also how we can deal with these, or what would be a strategy to deal with these negative effects, that everything disappears behind a paywall, that everything has to be marketed also. Like we see now in the last year, we've seen the rise of a lot of what I would call almost aggressive marketing, which is digital marketing by the book. With all the power it unfolds, with all discomfort it creates for me personally, and how we bring this thing that has made and still makes this such a lovely community, how we can keep that, how we do not lose that because so many more people come in, how we do not fall for the sense of competition. And I also heard from a lot of people in India, they say that even from education from the beginning, it's always a competitive system. And in the end, I don't believe in competitive systems. They're hyped. Now everybody's watching the Olympic Games to see how the one doped person can be a few milliseconds faster than the other one. This is painted as like a huge value, but actually it's like complete destructive, utter bullshit in my eyes. But I'm very happy if you challenge that view. I don't know, maybe we should go through the row, and Ruokun, you also build up this huge community. No? On the one hand, of course, you want to bring in as many people as possible, give them possibilities. On the other hand, also, it's a product, of course. And how do we deal with this? How do we build a future?
That's a difficult question.
No.
I think to answer I'm one of the people who has a Patreon, and I think actually, like what drove me to start sharing tutorials and what still drives me to keep sharing stuff is because when you're very interested in a thing, and when you really love doing something, which for some reason has become sort of generative art and graphics now for me. I just love doing it, and it's a virus that you want to infect other people with. That's just human nature, you know? So that's the first impulse. And then the second impulse is that I like to pay rent. And that's where Patreon comes in. And that's sort of, I would say that's the only positive thing about it. And it's not a small thing. But I don't like keeping things behind a paywall. But until there's another way for me to do this and pay rent, it's difficult to see what that can be. Yeah, that's where I'll start.
So I am also one of these people with a Patreon, and I think for me it has basically enabled me to actually work full-time as a touch designer artist. Like, I did not plan to do this at all. Like, I came out of university and I started making videos, and I, like Simon says, like I just wanted to share, and that's still my attitude. I just want to share, and the thing is, I didn't even plan on making a Patreon. It just kind of happened because people were actually asking for it, because people from the community were like, we want to support you for the work that you do. So it actually came from outside. And then I was like, all right, let me try what this is. I didn't even know about Patreon, and now I can pay my bills with it. I also like to pay my rent. So I think and it also takes the stress away of being like dependent on projects. I still do commissions, but like I have sort of a more or less stable income, which is just incredible as an artist nowadays, to actually have a good monthly income that you can more or less rely on. And I think it has also like been like with not just me, obviously, a lot of creators, has been a huge positive impact on the community, because people are paying for like the work, like for the work that we do. But also I personally, and I see that with a lot of other creators, like they get paid for some of the work they do, and maybe some part of it is behind a paywall, but a lot of my stuff and a lot of other people's stuff is still available for people to watch for free. And I think personally that's super important. Like, when I make my stuff available for most people to watch without paying, but then once they feel like, okay, I want to support this person further, then they can do that. So I think that is a super important part and aspect for me. Yeah, some of the negative aspect, as you have already mentioned, I think is kind of the scattering and like the making it more difficult to access all the different things that people make, and obviously having to pay for it. But even just for like having an overview of what there is, it's like it's really hard to know like all the different tools. There's no like one place where you can go, and I think this is something the community has been wishing for a while, that there's this one kind of like a marketplace where you can get files and like, yeah. So yeah, it's difficult, but for now I'm just super happy that this is a thing, and that we as creators can be paid for the work that we do. But I think it's about the attitude that you have with it, and like how much you should still share for the public, basically. That much for now.
My belief reasons to start Patreon were exactly the same. At some point I just understood that I have knowledge to share that I would like to share, and I genuinely love it. And also at some point it was very important source of money, of income for me. I believe like what we are talking here is generally about capitalistic system, and the main problem here is that we're dealing with one of the most sustainable systems in the like our world, and that engulfs almost every aspect that is that is opposite to it, and like how capitalism engulfed punks, for example, and it seems right now that like TouchDesigner and like art in general is not punk, or slowly getting out of punk at the moment, and the question for me here is like it's very, very difficult to imagine the way out of this for me.
I think I'm probably not a Patreon creator, but a subscriber. I'm on the other side of the spectrum, basically. Starting off with TouchDesigner was about like 12 years ago, 2014, 2015. And as Stefan mentioned, there were only a few people who had like tutorials, and Matthew Rydén, for example, he had those tutorials from his ASU classes, basically, which were what I started off with. And of course, you had a problem, you go to the forum, and then you kind of ask this, and then you had the developers or some one of those people kind of responding to your question at that point, which was super helpful and inspiring, because things that you, like, there wasn't much material and resources at that point. Whereas now, I think there's an abundance of it. There's so much, and it's very hard to kind of, where do you start at this point? If I were to start TouchDesigner at this point, I'd be lost. And I don't know where I would be able to even start and get to a point where I can do things. I did entertain at some point making tutorials, because people asked me, like, how have you done this stuff? And just the time and energy just to make that, I was like, no, this is not for me, but I really am super grateful for the people who have actually done this and are putting it up for free for the beginning. And it takes a lot of time and energy to actually even put that up, right? Because you have to think about what are you sharing. It has to be something that's clear, something that is kind of robust as well. And I think the good thing with Patreon is that it kind of allows multiple people at a lower cost. Unfortunately, there is a discrepancy between, let's say, Indian economies and Western economies, where it's not always affordable and accessible for us. But I think with Patreon, it somewhat allows us a little bit compared to having to sign up for like a longer course or something like that, or a master class or something like that. This gives us a little bit of an insight on what is possible with somewhat of a lower rate. But I think there is still a big community of people who are doing it for free as well, and that's something that's really appreciated, and I think it needs to have that balance, and each person to their own, I guess, to a certain extent. Yeah.
So, Ruokun, I mean, the Chinese community is a bit hidden for us because of the language barrier, and we cannot even read the signs, so it's a bit of a black box. I mean, of course, by talking to you guys, seeing your presentations, we understand a bit more. Is it like that in China, TouchDesigner community really refers super strongly to you guys, and there is not this Patreon, or is there also like a Chinese alternative to Patreon? Do you also see this fragmentation, or does your specific situation make it for a much more unified experience for people?
Thanks. Well, I think it's a little bit different situation here in China. First, Patreon is not available if you don't have like a VPN to reach. So that's why we start the T community and build our own website. And the second, I think it's because back to 10 years ago, there's very few people, I guess less than 10 people in China know what TouchDesigner is. If you search online, there's no Chinese resources at all. I have to say, like in China, most people, they don't really good at English. So that's why we need like some like this group to help people to understand what it is, and especially all the UI is in English. So back to 10 years ago, we started to reach most of people, and of course, I mean like balance. I mean, like the money situation is another problem. We need to figure out how to balance because there's no way to like Patreon. You know, it has like a very mature system available for people to pay. But if like us, we post our own tutorial, it's really hard to get money. Okay.
Can you move the mouse out of his picture? Sorry. Don't listen to me. I'm just talking to the.
Okay. And I think, but I mean, why at the very beginning, we are still like just really like TouchDesigner. I mean, because actually Matthew Rydén and me are classmates, so we're in ASU, and I was the first time I learned TouchDesigner is from him, and I really moved his spirit because every time after class, I ask him to have a coffee just because I want to ask a lot of questions. So that's how I started TouchDesigner. And later, I think I really moved by this kind of like sharing spirit and to set up the T community. And of course, I mean, Bileam, Simon, thanks a lot for your tutorials a lot. I mean, like they contribute their own tutorial to the whole Chinese community for free. So which makes it possible to make a lot of beginners to learn from the very start very start. And then, but actually at the beginning, we invest the community from our commercial group, digital fund, which is I introduced yesterday. Actually, we invest, I mean, like some money at the first 3 years, and until the fourth years, 2 years ago, we started to make it the money issues, I mean, a little bit better. So I mean, like this community, this kind of community is very hard, but I really enjoy the sharing spiritual between peoples like you guys do, you know, on Facebooks and Patreon. So after I, you know, see like this kind of like growing numbers of people in this community, you know, increase so fast in the past 5 years to like 300,000 people in this community. I mean, like I think this is a good thing. I need to, you know, to keep it. I need to keep doing it. So that's how that's my thought. But of course, I mean, in China, there's a lot kind of small community available or small events happening every day in China. So not just T community, but I think it's a good thing. Yeah, that's the mostly about us.
But is there something like Patreon as well? Because we see that in China there's a lot of parallel app systems. Is there like a Chinese Patreon where people share only for the Chinese world?
Actually, there's one called Bilibili. I'm not sure if you if you know it, but the issue is the platform. You know, they will split the income like more than 50%. So it's not friendly at all to the creators. So that's why I think it's very hard for the beginners in China to start their own tutorials. And also, I think there's copyright issues. I mean, like you can still find some like free, but it shouldn't be free tutorials somewhere. So I think it will harm the community. So we're trying to balance. I mean, like the existed issue and providing the better tutorials and makes people, you know, connection. So that's why we build up the community, not just tutorials. And also, I think people would like to reach like global, international creators like you guys, and I think it's another way, to help most creators to get what they need from this community. Yeah.
Thank you for that view. So, in a way, what would be kind of the idea? I mean, Patreon, we heard, does a lot of good things, but of course it's also another example for platform capitalism, and also this, I want to share, but I'm also in this situation that I'm forced to do something else, because the world is not built in a way that people can do the things that they're best at and like doing, but they always have to make compromises. Hard to imagine how an alternative system should look like. But if you take a step back and say what would be the ideal situation, where we wouldn't be depending on somebody from outside the community, kind of harvesting these needs that we have and these urges that we have, what would be the utopia? What would make you go off Patreon and say, okay, now I'm super happy that this is handled somewhere else? Are there crowdsourcing things? I don't know. It's just really fishing for ideas here.
I mean, if you're talking about utopia, there's this thing actually in Ireland. I don't know if you heard about that. There's like a universal basic income for artists that they're starting or testing now. So I think something like that, like actually having a state-funded support for artists could be a good place. So it's not actually paid by the people directly, but more, you generally have a basic income that you can rely on, because I think that's the main stress factor, obviously, for all like freelancers, but especially artists. It's super difficult. So, I mean, we need some kind of security in some sense. Yeah. So I think if it comes from a more systemic approach, which is way larger than what we can do, it's also kind of what Artem said. I think the problem is deeper. It's like a systemic issue of capitalism, and I don't think we as artists. I mean, again, I'm trying to share as much as possible for free, but then we as individual artists are not the ones who are going to change the system by not participating and not making money off the work that we do. So in a sense, I think the problem is way larger, and if there was some kind of fundamental funding that we get monthly, then we maybe wouldn't have to rely on each other to pay from our own money for other artists.
I mean, that's the income question, right? I mean, yeah. Patreon solves that in a way, but of course they take their share. But we also said they create this fragmentation, so it becomes very difficult to say, or you have to run around and kind of get all of them. Then it gets kind of expensive, even though it's micropayments. Do you feel like if that would be moved on one platform and kind of systematized, that would be beneficial? So the place where I can browse, Simon just put this out, Bileam has a new series, Artem just released this. Would that be beneficial for you as creators? And
I absolutely believe so, and I think it would also give a lot of the new creators that come now. I mean, we all kind of like people know us, which is a huge advantage actually. But a lot of new people that are starting, like making their Patreons, it's going to be harder and harder to live off of that. So I think if it's one platform that kind of highlights new people as well, that could greatly benefit everybody. And I would love to have like also kind of integrated platform in TouchDesigner, right? I mean, Wieland, for example, tried that with the OLEP, but it's just like community-based stuff so far. But I think we would all greatly benefit from that for sure. Like one like source of kind of where we can find stuff that we want to integrate.
I agree. I agree with the thought that it would come with some of its own problems to have a centralized platform and what that means. But most programs, Unreal, Unity, has some sort of platform where you can find assets and tools. But I also think that it's important to still keep the open sharing and not just have a storefront and a marketplace. but to keep the spirit of open source and to keep the spirit of open sharing of knowledge, which I think in many ways defines the community, at least for me. And in order for that to be sustainable and not as fragmented, I can imagine a utopia where the bigger players in the space would recognize the value of that and contribute back, rather than each individual practitioner having to contribute. Sort of like an in-between of what it is now and the universal basic income, more of the sort of open source model. I know that there are universities that just put on Bileam's tutorials. Maybe you should get some of that money, you know? And I can see that that can also be a way if there are bigger projects that uses tutorials and patches of a person, then maybe they should pay a little bit more than the Patreon subscription. And also but this also, what I'm suggesting here is also in an honor system, which I don't know how to enforce, so yeah.
That's the thing about an honor system, you don't enforce it, you like build on the ethics.
Yeah.
For example, V4 has this kind of honor license, which means if you're not working commercially, just use it. And if you make money with it, please give us a call and buy the license. Yeah. And their argument is that the effort to put this control mechanism through is so much that in their niche it's just not worth the effort and nobody wants to do that. And with us it's a bit similar, right? We have the student professional company tire. I can reveal the secret, we almost never sell a company ticket. But we leave it up to people for the one reason, just I don't want to be like the gatekeeper who say, oh, you get in, you not. And the other reason is just very simple, it's way too much effort. Like checking for people's fake student IDs, like why should I do that? Like we're always super happy when somebody pays professional or even company because it shows they understand, they respect it, and they want to support. So, and that makes me every time super happy because they don't have to. Yeah, you can get it as cheap as you can, but you don't have to. But I also feel like maybe the bigger agencies that actually in the end bring in the harvest of a lot of this. I was trying that a bit in Berlin to get them kind of interested in kind of a Patreon supportship. They're not really jumping, of course, because they're also thinking in products, they're selling products, or they're... I mean, what you said reminds me a bit that for older mediums, these kind of things were put into place, right? For music, you have a institution that kind of collects these revenues, and they're quite good, so they get their money. You have something like the KSK in Germany, which collects from the bigger agencies who employ freelancers and then pays the health insurance and so on for people who are freelancing, so they have a similar kind of security as employed people. Ding dong. Oh. But I think if you look at the global picture, of course, traditionally this has been handled by states. I don't think that states feel that responsibility anymore. Like they used to build libraries, but do they do the same thing for internet content? No. Like go with books, we do it. With everything newer, we kind of a bit shy to do it. Maybe there would be something like, you know, there's what's Genossenschaft in English? Yeah, cooperatives, where you have kind of companies that can be of company size, but that are owned by their members and have kind of ways to balance out these interests. I mean, this has been happening at the early ages of anti-capitalists. So, this is getting such a problem that we have to do something about it. Of course, the one way would have to be the communist revolution. The other way, which they try to push from the Christian side, is this, okay, this help each other to help each other out, like cooperative style. So in a way also to keep people from doing the revolution. but a lot of what we experience here is transcend these nation borders. So probably it would have to be a system that's not bound to a nation, but of course the nation will force us to bound it to a nation.
Yeah, I think regarding the, when you talked about Matthew Rydén, for example, it was all the tutorials that he was teaching at the university. So that could be an interesting way to have the education systems actually create these, like MIT, for example, has these open courses. So it basically pays, for example, if Bileam is kind of paid by the universities themselves to create a course instead of just putting the YouTube video on, and to kind of create that material for the university, for the students there, and then open that up. And because that's the ecosystem of education there, basically. And of course, there's a difference between in-person and online communication and teaching. But I think at the university level, if they can kind of create that sort of system where they're allowing some courses to be shared online for free and letting people get involved with it, that might be an interesting way to also explore that. I don't know.
Yeah, actually there is, I think, these ideas of open education and open science and so on. So maybe that's actually like a really good pathway there, because they already get financed.
Yeah, exactly.
And Germany universities are state financed, so they don't really have a paywall for the students. So what would hinder them to open it up to anyone?
Yeah.
It would not make their product worse. Of course, in UK, where everybody pays for education, they'll be a lot more shy to do that because it means giving the product away for free. Yeah, then it probably depends also how the individual states are positioning them towards this.
Just want to add, like, slightly different aspect of this topic, that while it seems to me logically like record and share, like for example institute courses, and like at least after some time, it also there is a thing that you values courses and knowledge you pay for much more than usually free stuff, and it motivates you to finish it usually, and it's much harder to do. Like it's nowadays it's even hard to finish the things you pay for, and the things that are free. Like there are literally tons of materials about touch on YouTube today, and it's really hard for many people to find motivations to learn it, even having a desire to do that.
Okay, that's true. Coming from this background, teaching at university in Germany where it's free, and then starting to have people who paid for the courses, well, I think it's super important that the education is free. I must say it's a lot more satisfying to work with the people who paid, because they're really on their game. Or you might have this class of 30 students at university who just like, you know, they take it like they watch telly, and like 3 of them get into it, and the rest is just a complete waste of time to deal with them. I mean, that's maybe a dramatic situation, but that's a bit sad to experience, and maybe that's how deep capitalism is already rooted, that only if you pay for it, you only value it, and the free stuff feels like, oh yeah, that can't be good because it's free. How does that feel on your end? Because, I mean, officially China is like a communist country, but on the other hand, it's also, you know, a very economic, might say capitalistic country, so you're navigating these 2 poles anyway. Do you see that the official education system is picking up on impulses like that? You know, seeing what the tea community does, and do universities think like, oh my God, these guys are doing all this work that we should actually do. Should we maybe bring them in? Should we support them? I know that you cooperate with universities, but do you feel like in some years they might offer you a faculty and say, oh, don't you want to come with all your community and be part of this? Or is it more like, is it going to go in an economic direction? Or what do you see happening there, and how does the education system react to you?
Okay, I think I would say like China is like from the political perspective, it's a communist country, but I would say it's like it's more like a capitalism country for me, for my feeling. Everything, is very like free marketing, especially in Shanghai. But I would say like my feeling is like from the very beginning, because there's very few resources, very small group of people working on TouchDesigner. So we could say, okay, if you want to have this kind of tutor, you need to pay for it. But right now, there are huge numbers of people, they teaching online, they sharing their tutorials, so everybody can get benefit from this community. But from the negative side, which means like we get less than before if the community keeps the same amount of people. So for us, I think from the very beginning, I think it's very important to increase the number of people, to bring more people to the community. So in that case, there will be more people, to possible to pay for the tutorial. And second, I think people paid for the service, not just the tutorial. So that's why most of our like workshop is on site. We bring people meet face to face. I think communication is more important than just teaching TouchDesigner. And also, I think people benefit a lot through talk to each other, and they really want to get the answer in a second. So they want to pay for the service. I mean, that's another like a kind of I mean like Chinese phenomenon, because if you know WeChat, so we work on WeChat, we need to get the answer immediately in 10 seconds, every time. So that's why WeChat is very popular in China, but not that popular in other countries, because people don't want to answer, like right after you ask questions. So I think that's the different behaviors makes the different market, and makes it different. I mean, like to people to pay for different styles, different kinds of service, also in different kinds of tutorials. So I think, I mean, like China is like, I mean, it's very similar, because when I was studied in ASU, and right now Chinese education is very, I mean, not cheap at all. So they still, you need to pay for a lot if you want to be enrolled in like private universities. And if you want to go to a good universities, you need to pay a huge amount of money in the first 18 years before you get enrolled in a good one. So I mean, still, I mean, people need to spend a lot of money on education, the same like the states. What happens? But for the community, we want to make it easier for people, especially the beginner, to get touch to some like very beginning tutorials for free. So if they're interested, they will step in, and then it makes it possible for them to pay more for the whole community, to make more people to benefit from it. So that's what I feel, I mean, from this in the past year's experience.
Thank you for that. I think we've covered now a lot of questions. We've realized there's not the one answer. This is kind of what I was anticipating, of course. But I think it was interesting to hear the different perspectives, also from different countries, different situations. How does this feel from inside a free education system, which maybe gives a lot of access, but is really slow to adapt? or like a paid system, which is maybe faster because they need to be on par. And I think we all agree that everybody wants to put out stuff that's just easy for people to consume, and they don't have to pay because we all benefit from it and we really like it. And then the escalation levels kind of need to be discussed, but it would be cool if we had a central platform. I mean, I'm also thinking about if Node Institute should do that, but we've seen what happened to Wieland, all the other people who tried this platform. It turns out you have to run a shop, right? You start out to want to do a TouchDesigner thing, but actually it's a complete economics question, management question, and then you're like, nah, do I really want to spend my life with that? Setting that up, especially with my background, who screams bankruptcy very fast. But it's kind of interesting that Derivative also says they don't want to do this, right? Maybe for just the same reasons, that they also don't want to turn into a huge shop. So I think what we're going to see is that somebody going to pick up that ball as soon as there's like package managing and it's like technically quite feasible, at least for tools. Interesting question if that also extends then to education and if some central platform can establish itself. Are there any famous last words you would add on top of these open questions?
There's one aspect I really want to bring attention to as well, is like what we've seen a lot in Berlin happening. I mean, it doesn't like solve the problem of scattering at all. It's quite the opposite, but it's actually having physical events. And at these physical events, I'm not even talking about workshops, but the kind of meetups that we do, right? That Linda does and we started doing as well. It's like that, I think, is where the spirit of like the community really shows, like where you actually, there is no money involved at all. You just like come together and you just like look at each other's patches and just share your knowledge for free, because it's just this one-on-one thing. It's very open-minded, and I think that's a really nice aspect of the community that we should keep on doing. And also like the kind of online meetups that I also host and some other people do. People just sharing what they do and just showing their patches, and I think that's a pretty good aspect of like going against this commercialism and commercialization, that's the word. So actually being in like meeting in person, sharing the patch, and that kind of is this punky vibe, more like down to earth, and not like there's no like internet involved in that case. And it's very local, obviously, but I think there's a huge value to that.
Thank you for reminding us of that aspect, as we all experienced now here the beauty of being here together and not just onlining around. And yeah, I mean, that's also the way to cut the platform. I mean, you still create the platform because you have the space and so on, but yeah, it takes it out of these outsider systems of skimming off the things that you actually want to do.
I want to stress the importance of the old TouchDesigner community that's slightly disappearing into the Patreon void. And I do think it is the responsibility of us as creators who are somewhat stable to be a little bit more radical in how we share things, and to not just share things for free as a sales funnel towards our Patreons, but to actually share things for the purpose of sharing if you have that possibility, just so that we can work a little bit against the paywallification of TouchDesigner learning and the online salesmanship of it all, because I do think that that can be harmful in the long run.
I think for me, it's also what the motivation to create and all these tutorials, or the intention behind it is. I mean, like growing up with the TD community on the forum, and like just getting that help is a way to pay it back in some way or the other, so that other people who are in a similar position that you were in, trying to start off, are just having that accessibility. I think a lot of people nowadays are creating a lot of tutorials also just to gain visibility more. So I'm going to contradict myself in the sense of saying when we talk about the university element of it, if the intention to create is to get money out of it, then that's where it becomes a problem. If the intention, and as you started off by just sharing because you enjoy the process of sharing, and that's how everybody kind of really, the community grows from that because the intention is in the way that you're kind of doing the tutorials or anything. It's not for educating. It's not for, okay, this is how you're going to learn to use TouchDesigner to get a project or something like that. But just because you've enjoyed the process of doing it, here's how you can do it yourself, and perhaps you can take it further. So I think it's also a lot about what the intention behind why we want to do it, and what the community has always been around sharing, because we've enjoyed the process of working on these things, and the chaos, all the accidents and all of that really comes out, and oh, this accident is really nice, let me just share it out. So perhaps an education system might go against that, where it's more formal, a little more to a certain goal of, let's say, getting projects or something like that. But if it's just for the sake of sharing, I think that could be really interesting to focus on more that kind of projects, and I mean that kind of tutorials in that sense.
Yeah, I think, I mean, of course, what you say resonates, no? Because as Node, we also discuss, oh, we need to put more free content, because clearly we are in the business of selling content, so immediately that puts you in the sales funnel. It's kind of, yeah, I don't like it, but it automatically happens, right? And that's, again, the power of capitalism, who just sneaks in everything and forces you to think, or kind of forces you to feel that way. But maybe we could add with this panel also a bit the thought that we all remind ourselves that that is, of course, one thing, especially if we're professional in the teaching or in the tool sharing, but that we also have a responsibility to give access and to keep that access. And as we now looking at the currency situation, I feel responsibility towards India to make at least the access as possible as it is for German or American customers, which are very supported by their currencies. And unfortunately, we did a research on that, and yeah, it's totally possible. You just have to go through a really big platform that handles all the complexity for you, and then you can sell your digital project according to the currency the person comes from. But there's not an easy DIY way there, so you get in the situation that you have to deliver yourself to the platform to do the nice thing. So, catch-22.
I also want to point out that it could be viewed from the different point that sometimes I do not want to buy a specific tutorial or a product. Actually, I want to my motivation mostly is to get a model of thinking of a specific person, and if I, with my little amount of money, can buy that person like just some hours of just work on projects, because tutorials are seems to be very time consuming, and it's usually TouchDesigner what people do to like as a hobby, and tutorials it's like extra hobby on top of it that takes a lot of money out of some space you could spend on art, for example. And if I can buy that time for a person I like to learn from, yes, please, like, take my money. Like, I'm totally agree.
Okay, I think we should bring this conversation to an end. Thank you for your contributions from all the different places that you're coming from. Interesting topic. We're going to see how it develops. Also for you, no? It's a way to make a living with TouchDesigner, is to be a TouchDesigner person that builds tools or that teaches. We'll see how it develops. There's no answers here. Thank you very much for contributing, and thank you, Ruokun, for beaming in over all this distance. And I hope to see you soon in person.
See you. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
And we're going to have a little break, and then we're going to come back with the last and concluding panel of this session. That's supposed to take a look at the immersive, interactive industry, culture, locations, and so on in India. Of course, something we don't know almost anything about it. We know now the Sixth Sense is putting a foot on the ground to presenting a certain richness of new media art, but we're very curious for all the diverse guests that have been invited to educate us and also you about what is actually going on in India. Who are the players? How is the game being played? And maybe hopefully get some honest information about that. So stick with us for this exciting panel with a lot of exciting guests. Thank you, guys.